Hello, welcome to Closing Chapters, Everyday Real Estate Tales. I'm your host, Brittany Fry. I'm a realtor, I'm a military wife, and I'm a mom. Join me and come transaction by transaction throughout my real estate career starting back in 2016 to hear about the highs, the lows, and the unexpected turns along the way through all of my customers. It's going to be a crazy ride, you guys. I am so excited to share the past, the current, and then what's coming in the future. Hang tight for the ride. Join me about being a realtor, a military spouse, and a mom. Can't wait to see you there. Welcome back. I'm going to start this episode by saying everybody deserves a chance at homeownership. Sometimes it's not easy, sometimes it's not ideal for the client or for me. And that was the case with this next transaction. I received a phone call at my office from somebody looking at a property that I had listed. It wasn't a fit for him, but he was a buyer, unrepresented, and wanted help looking at houses. Now, here's where it wasn't very advantageous for me. He spoke very broken English, and it was hard for me to communicate with him. He had already started working with a lender, which was fantastic, but it was a lender that is known for not being in a rush, shall we say. They had a very particular process. Nothing was ever going to move quickly and could be a little bit particular on their requirements. So for me, I am like walking in the door double negative, right? I'm feeling like, okay, I know this is going to be a hard deal transaction, like financing wise. I am going to have to try really hard to communicate effectively with this client because there's a language barrier. Can I do this? Am I capable? And the answer is yes. And here's the other thing, is he had never purchased a home before. So we had to start from square one. I had to help him understand what the process looked like and how to go about it. And on top of that, he wanted the American dream on a McDonald's budget, so to speak, which is fine. Everybody has to start somewhere. Now, this was an older gentleman. He was very well established. He just really wanted to be very specific on what he got into. So anyhow, we hit the ground running. The one saving grace in this scenario was that he was going to be using a conventional loan. And when I say it's a saving grace, there is a lot more leniency in the condition of a home when you use a conventional mortgage to finance the property versus, let's say, a government-backed loan like an FHA or VA loan. There's a lot more criteria that has to be met along the way in terms of, condition of paint, of flooring, what is operating in the house, what is included in the house, whatever the case may be. There's some different nuances there. So we were on the end of the scale where we had flexibility and could get into a house that needed a little bit of elbow grease, right? And that's exactly what we ended up finding. The really cool part about this is that the house that he found was actually in a fantastic location, a really well-known area of town that people really enjoy. And it's in a school district that is preferred for a lot of people in the area. So it's kind of a win-win for him in terms of resale value in the future. Little note on that though, he hasn't sold it yet. He bought it in 2018 and he still owns it. So he is doing a great job building up equity. And it's quite a bit. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. So we get to looking at properties and we go into this property and it needs work. So the communication barrier here is conveying to him, yes, it needs work, but nobody's going to do it but you. So the house was being sold as is, this is the condition it's in. And what they were willing to do, there was a carpet allowance on there. So it's at our flooring allowance for about $2,700 to help with some of the flooring that needed to be replaced. So he just had in his mind, though, that when you buy a house that somebody else fixes everything for you. Like you go into the house and everything is done. So we really had to work through that and help him understand that you don't get to purchase a house for $105,000 and expect it to be clean as whistle, right? There's going to be things you need to do. Considering this house was in really great shape for $105,000. It was an all brick rancher, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet, and a great area of town. He hit the lottery, my friends. So, anyhow, he finally understands, and we get settled on this and we get the process going. So, between getting the offer under contract and getting lending in line, we are able to hit the ground running. Here's the really cool part, okay? This house was listed for $116,500. He purchased it for $105,000 with $3,000 towards closing costs. So subtract that off the sales price, say $102,000. So he got almost $15,000 off the list price on a property that was already priced really well. So this just goes to show that motivation can be different for everyone across the board. There's no way, no how this house will ever sell for that price again, especially even if it was in the condition it was then, but now an even better condition. So he got a gem, and we worked through the process. We had to get past the appraisal. He had to understand the difference between an inspection and an appraisal, which, just as a quick reminder, an inspection is not required but highly suggested. It's always up to the buyer whether you do inspections or not, but you need to know your home. And the best way you can do that is have a third party go through it and share their knowledge with you on the property, show you what's working, what's not working, if there's any red flags, all of the above. Sometimes it's really cool just to see them go through and find something that you didn't know about, work the sprinkler systems, whatever the case may be, just all these little things. And at the end of the day, as long as you know about something, then you can move forward confidently and make a decision. If we don't know something's wrong and then we find out in the rears, then that's not a happy surprise, right? So that's why the inspection is so important. But what's required for the loan is the appraisal. So in this case, he didn't really want to spend an extra penny past what he had to. And once again, still wanted the seller to make repairs on this house without having an inspection, which most of the time they will not do. And two, it was already as is. The seller had already said, if we're not doing anything and we just gave you almost $15,000 off the price, you need to kick rocks. So that was the nice version of hey, why are you poking the bear? Why do you keep asking for more? And on my end, you have to represent your client. And if he's asking for it, then I have to convey that. It doesn't matter how many times I say, hey, I really don't think that's wise. I really don't think they're going to go for that. I think that you've pushed the boundary. It doesn't matter. So either way, they politely said no to several things, and he finally got the picture and came to terms. So we got past the appraisal. The loan was moving slowly but surely, and we finally got to closing day. And at the closing, of course, was always interesting as well, because once again, there's quite the language barrier. So he doesn't quite understand what he's done with the lender versus what he's doing with the attorney, and that they kind of mesh together. So once that all gets explained to him and he understands that, the attorney is basically duplicating what the lender has done. But his confusion was that the lender sent him over all these forms and he was seeing them again and being asked to sign them again. He didn't understand why there was a duplicate of the paperwork. So whenever you're going through the process, a lot of times the lender is going to get you to electronically sign a lot of stuff, and then they want a wet signature for their file. So when it comes to closing, you are signing all the same things that you have already signed digitally, just in pen. So we got past that confusion and marched on our merry way towards getting keys in our hands. So he signed and finally got keys and has kept the property, like I said, since 2018. Still enjoying it at a great price, right? His mortgage is fantastic, especially compared to what's going on nowadays. And I want to tell you, I told you he has a boatload of equity, right? He bought this house for $105,000 on December 31st in 2018. He still owns that property, and the quick report of what his value should be is around $212,000. So as long as it is in good condition and he has updated it properly, he has doubled his money in equity if he were to sell this property. How cool is that? So once again, he deserved it. He deserved an opportunity. And I needed to learn a little bit of patience. What a great opportunity for both of us to hone in on a skill that we each needed. He learned a little bit more about business and real estate and everything on the American side of things. And I had to be patient and practice communication skills to a fault, which was great. We all need that every once in a while. And it's always a great reminder that everyone starts somewhere. So I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to help this gentleman, and I am really stoked that he's still living in this house that is serving him well and that it is appreciating well. It's going to be a great asset for him whenever he needs it in the future.